you're very careful, you're picky. Nמצא שתלויה במחשבה ובמעשה. We find that humility is dependent upon thinking and action. You have to think like a humble person and you have to act like a humble person. Keep it to healer. Keep it to healers, and this he did not say by the other characteristics, other character traits. Keep it to healer, שיהיה האדם, עניו במחשבתו. It's necessary, it has to start that a person thinks, his thoughts have to be, he has to be an عنב in his thinking. It's the thinking that's the key. ואחר and after that, יתנהג בדרכי הענוים. He has to accustom himself in the ways of humility. כי אם לא יהיה עניו בדעתו, because if he is not humble in his thinking, וירצה להיות עניו במעשה, and he tries to be humble in his actions, לא יהיה אלא מן הענוים המדומים. He will be one of those people that are faking it. How does he translate that? Pseudo humble people.
He uses the word hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy. Well, that's
pseudo humble.
Pseudo humble.
Pseudo humble.
Yeah.
והרעים, who are evil. Did he say that?
Evil people.
And evil people, right. שזכרנו למעלה, we mentioned above. שהם מכלל הצבועים. These are the hypocrites. שאין בעולם רע מהם, and there's nothing worse than these people. Now that's a toughie to worse than some people who deny the royal family of England. I mean, is that worse than that? What do you say, guys?
I didn't understand what you deny. What of England?
You deny the royal family. You're not a royalist, right? You're down with the crown, right? Treasonous stuff here, right? I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff in the world. This is it's a hard one to say. This is the worst of all the traits.
It is, especially if you're a leader.
Okay, fine. But what about everybody else?
Well, she said especially, but yeah, I think that includes everybody else.
Yeah, it's bad, but why is it the worst? I mean, I can think I don't want to go into a list of character traits or things people can do that are pretty awful, but just read the internet and you'll find all kinds of crazy things that people do. But this is the worst.
Well, you did say last week that someone who is humble is someone that does not take themselves as a factor when things need to get done, etc., etc. So if someone's pretending not to take themselves into the equation, they're pretending to be humble, then really they do not have your best in mind. And so therefore you're trusting somebody that is pretending to be humble and caring, but really doesn't. Sort of like, certain government officials. I forgot we're recording.
and I agree with you. It's just you and I have different people in mind. Put that aside.
Isn't it? It's like being a pig.
Is that being a pig?
Yeah,
right, saying,
I
know what she
puts on
means.
this big show that it's kosher and it chews its cud, but the hooves. So it looks like it's, or I forget, vice versa.
No,
one of the signs. It looks on the.
Yeah, it puts its hooves out, and they're split hooves, but it doesn't chew its cud. And so it's like, exactly, see, look, I'm really kosher, but it's not.
Right, and then I think that's so bad because it's Hashem's signature is emes, is truth. So you're making just a mockery and a travesty out if you're pretending to be truthful and humble and you're not, you're pretending to be godly and you're not. It's like Neva's das. It's like, Lucy saying Mechshel, there's probably a gazillions of lavs in there by doing that.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, but why is it so bad, right? He says, Ein ro'im, ein ba'olam ramahem. These are the worst of all the people, worse than the child molesters, worse than the murderers, worse than the, all the other despicable people going around in the world.
Because they're saying that God doesn't exist.
Well, okay, so there's lots of people who say God doesn't exist.
That's
But they're
the
not
worst.
pretending to be something they're not.
Yeah, I was just going to, exactly. I was going to say, they put up a false front.
Yeah, right. But we have to understand why that's so bad. So you see, what is humility? We talked about this last week. What's humility? Is you don't think about yourself, right? It's not that you think of yourself as less, is you just think about yourself less, right? There's an important distinction here. We're going to get into it more tonight, but it's not self-deprecation. The Western idea of humility is self-deprecation. It's very interesting. One of the Bible criticisms that's laid out there is that the Torah says that Moshe was the humblest man that ever lived, and these Bible critics they smack themselves on the back. They think they're such geniuses, and I've seen it written that they go, you see, it must be a phony because no humble person would ever write such a thing, right?
But it wasn't him. It was Hashem saying it wasn't him.
Right, but then imagine Moshe's having a discussion with Zipporah, his wife, and he says to her, honey, who do you think is the humblest man that ever lived? And she says, well, my brother was pretty humble, right? My father, he was a real great guy. You understand? And Moshe says, no, it wasn't. I mean, they're nice people, but guess who God just nominated as the humblest man in the world? Moi.
Yeah, I think he just lost that nomination by doing that.
Yeah, so you understand? So that's their argument, right? How can Moshe write that he's the humble, as he's writing the words that God's telling him? He's going, well, I didn't think I was that good. Oh, now I realize I was such a big guy I am. You understand?
No, that's not the right interpretation.
What's the right interpretation then?
Interpretation is that he knew that he had certain gifts and certain abilities because God gave it to him so that he could do a certain job. And he was doing that job. It wasn't an easy job that he was doing. I mean, we're talking about millions of people and like leading them through from slave mentality to a free mentality and dealing with all their problems and their rebelliousness. And that's not an easy job. And you have to be a person that is thinking about others in order to be able to do that job, because otherwise you're going to think about yourself and say, I'm so miserable dealing with this nation all the time, every day, all they do is complain.
But also, see, to think about at the very beginning, isn't Moshe the one who said, hey, you got the wrong guy?
Yeah, right. I think we talked about this last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, but nevertheless, when God tells him he's the humblest man that ever lived, that's going to do something for his self-esteem. Right? It's
got to detract from if you're humble, well, it's a little less because he's been
That's right. So you said that's what the Bible critics say. You see, it can't be written by Moshe because Moshe couldn't write. By the mere fact that he's writing it means that he can't be humble.
That's because they can say that because they're using their definition.
That's exactly the point, right? They're using their definition, the Western definition of humility. They think it's all the same, right? The level of self-evaluation is extremely thin, right? Especially at the edges. So so their definition of humility is self-deprecation. So if I say you're a nice person, right, is to say you're not. Right now, it's fascinating, really, when you think about it, because
it's psychotic.
it's abusive. That's what it is. In other words, if I come up to you and say to you, you know, whatever, you know, my favorite joke, you know, the guy goes to the doctor and the doctor gives him some bad news and says, can I get a second opinion? He says, sure, you're ugly too.
Knew you were going to say that.
so you know, if I come up to, and if someone goes up to another person and tells them, listen, you're ugly, right? We call that abusive, at least offensive.
That was done in a Gemara.
Both.
Well, maybe both, right? Now, what if it's someone who you're close to and respect, even more so? In other words, you got to a complete stranger and say it, okay, you, right? But your mother or your father says it, we call it abusive. It's called verbal abuse. It's called hate speech. And yet, people are expected to self-deprecate. In other words, if your mother would say it would be abusive, well, there's someone even closer to you saying it, yourself. Right?
It just shows you how messed up we are, that we actually say it to ourselves.
It's abusive. You can't say things like that. Right? You get upset when someone else says it to you, so then why are you saying it to yourself?
Bingo.
Right? That's the Western idea of humility, is to be self-deprecating. That's not the Jewish idea. Right? That's not the Jewish idea. What is the Jewish idea? Is you're not here. Nothing personal, right? We're not here. In other words, right? It's like you know, I always use the scene from Saving Private Ryan. I have to get the scene. Maybe I can get it one time. We'll show it. It's, you know, you're on the landing boats hitting the Normandy beach, right? And it's bombs going off and bullets flying and people dropping dead. It's like crazy, crazy stuff, right? You're worried that your tie is straight? You know, you've got a little piece of food between your teeth? You know, how do I look, you know? You see, the scenario, the environment you're in is so pressing. The job you have to do is so pressing. You don't think about yourself. That's what humility is. It's not thinking thinking less about yourself. It's about thinking about yourself less. This is why, by the way, when it comes to children, parents can get along tremendously. But when it comes to other issues, it's very difficult between themselves. I've seen people cure incurable diseases, genetic diseases, and then get divorced. Because when it came to their children, they don't think about themselves. I'm not here. It's just a question of what needs to be done, right? And you have to make some very, very important decisions that are crucial, whether the kid lives or the kid dies. So when you do that, you forget about yourself. You're not there. That's what it means. He was the humblest man that ever lived, because it wasn't about him. It was all a matter of what needs to be done. When you think like that, that's humility. That's humility. So of course, he's the one who gives the Torah, because if you can't teach Torah if it's about me. Oh, you like that? Was that good? I said a really nice idea. What do you think? All right. Sometimes you meet people like this. Yeah. It's like, Rabbi Lopiansky, he has a line. He says, let me tell you about the new sefer I wrote on my way to give over a chesed shir. My new sefer I wrote on humility. That, on my way to give over a class on chesed. It's all about me. It's all about me. So when it's all about you, you miss out tremendously. So that's humility. So what's arrogance? It's the opposite.
When you only think of yourself.
Right. That one mentioned my name, by the way. And no one spelled it right. I can't believe it.
But it's more than just that. Because what I think I hear you saying is that when you are focused on something meaningful and important, which is why you're even here to begin with, then you don't spend time focusing on yourself because you are on you're focused on an important purpose.
That's exactly it. Right, that's humility.
The greater your purpose, and the more you focus on that purpose and less on yourself, the more humble you are. And so therefore, that's why Moshe was the most humblest, because his purpose was really one of the greatest, if not the greatest, and he completely and totally focused on it.
That's right. That's exactly right. So you're making a point here.
Well, then really being arrogant is someone who doesn't live a meaningful life and only thinks about themselves without regard to anybody. Right,
that's Korach. It's all about me. I didn't get the honor. That's what Korach was. That's why Korach would have been a disaster.
Well, he felt he deserved it, right?
That's exactly the problem.
He could have just as easily found another purpose, something that God had specifically created him for, where he actually, like, that was his job, instead of trying to seek something that didn't belong to him.
Oh, now you're getting into the higher levels of humility. That's all of us. See, what is it like? It's like you take a jumbo jet, right? You follow? And you take all the parts and lay them out in a giant hangar, right? And I give you the task of putting the plane back together again and flying to Israel. And you're going to get on this plane. It's funny, eh? Right? You're going to get on this plane, right? But you have no manual. You have no instructions, no nothing. You just got to figure out where every part goes. And you put the whole plane together. It looks great. You follow? But there's one bolt left on the floor. And no one knows. Is this holding the engine up? Right? You understand? You still get on the plane. No, you're not getting on that plane until you figure out where that bolt goes. Right? You understand? So you see which bolt is the most important bolt. Which part is the most important part? I mean, there's certain redundancies. You know, you don't necessarily need such nice chairs and things like that. But most of the plane, you need to work perfectly. You need to, right, for every part, right? That's this world. The Almighty made this world to function a certain way. And everybody's supposed to fill their part. And if they're not there, you left. You said that's the Jewish concept of abortion. You just knocked out the guy who's holding the wheel up. Right? No one else is going to fill that role. Now that goes the other way too, which is you have a role to play that only you can fill. And if you don't live up to it, it's not about me. I really wanted to be the wing. I was like, that's my thing. I really want to be the wing. Whatever that's Korach. I really want, no, your role is absolutely crucial for the functioning of the world. It's like the parts of a body or the parts of a clock. You don't have the part, there's no part in the clock that's more important than another part. They're all necessary. Yes, the heart is more important than the liver, but if you don't have any liver, you're still going the same way. You're not going to last very long.
Now, don't you say in your book on chapter 1 something like, the day you were born was the day Hashem decided the world could not exist without you.
Right, that's right. That's right. That's exactly the point, the same point.
The day you were born.
Right, it was the day God decided that the world cannot go on without you. You are here for a specific reason. Israela has a hand up. Go ahead, Israela.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Rabbi Bob. I was just, when you were talking, I was thinking, well, what about what Mordechai said to Esther? If he was asking her to do a very dangerous thing, which had the potential to save the Jews, and again she balked, and she finally said, "Imuvadati avadati." But what did he tell her? If you don't do it, someone else is going to do it. So what does that say about what you're saying here? I mean, yeah, we have an important job to do, but if we don't do it, Hashem will get someone else to do it.
Oh, that's a very good. I'm going to have to think about that. That's a very good question.
Thank you. I'm not going to be able to sleep until you find me.
Right.
So let me ask another question.
I mean, you just triggered something, because you can add on to that. Right, Dina was supposed to be a boy. The same idea. Right, Dina was supposed to be a boy, and Leah davened that she'd be a girl, even though it was past the 40 days, because Rachel would only have one child, and she didn't want her sister to have less than the handmaids, the Bilhah and Zilpah.
But if Dina was a boy and not a girl, then Yosef wouldn't have had someone to marry.
I don't get that. Sorry.
I thought it was Dina's daughter that Yosef married.
Right. That's very good. Okay.
Okay, so, but
you see, you're doing too good a job, Rabbi. You're learning too much from you, and we raise all of these questions.
So you see, right? There's a very interesting dynamic, right? And I think this goes to answer your question. Esav was supposed to be the Bechor. Dina was supposed to be a boy, and Esther's supposed to save the Jewish people. But if they don't do that, then we're dealing with it's sort of like you're the pilot, but the pilot dropped dead. So you're the pilot. So the pilot decided to take a break, right? So you're going to have to fill in for them, right? And we have such a thing that you can do that. You can do that for the Jewish people. Rav Noach says, how was Leah able to change Dina to a girl? Because for the future of the Jewish people, you can subsume your role, or morph into something else. Even though you've got a specific job, a specific part in this play, that if the Jewish people need it, you can change that. Your muzzle can change. So there is this idea, but nevertheless, with all of that said, there's something for you. Like you're supposed to be doing something now. You have a critical role to play in the future of humanity. And humility is it's not about me. It's I've got to hit the beaches of Normandy. And when you do that, you have a great life. Now, so that's humility. So arrogance is the opposite. It's all about me. Make sure you get my name right, etc., etc. Right? And it's very interesting. In the world, you see this role play out. That the more people have a front row seat, the Chazal say that no bracha exists. Every bracha has to be in something nista, hidden. You see that the more the role that a person has is overt, the less important it is. The least important people in a movie are the actors. It's the directors that really make the movie, and the script writers. the best actor in the world with a lousy plan, a lousy director is not going to go anywhere. This is true in money as well. The people who make the big money are not the people on the front end. They're the people who, you know, are sitting in a big office somewhere, miles away, sometimes thousands of miles away from the actual factory floor. Right? Is Elon Musk? He doesn't build Teslas with his own hands. This is true with everything. The more you want the prestige, the honor, the less important you're going to be, the less important your role is going to be. So the opposite of humility is obviously arrogance, and that is, it's all about me. Now, but that's not the worst. The worst is someone who pretends to be humble, who's really arrogant. And it's all about me, but he wants you to think it's all about you. Zita said that very much describes politicians.
Well, politicians and arrogance sort of go together.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous job. It's an occupational hazard, because part of their job, or to get re-elected, they have to tell everybody what good they've done, how good they are. And it's very hard to do that, right? Harry Truman has said this line, he's famous for this line. He said, there's no limit to what you can achieve if you're willing to not take the credit. Right, what is it called? The funds they did to rebuild Europe. What's it called? The
Marshall Plan.
Marshall Plan was his plan, but he didn't want his name on it. Very unusual in Washington to do things like that. Right? And he was one of the greatest presidents America ever had.
So when people want their name plastered on everything?
Yeah, it's usually not a good sign. Right. Right. And there are some motives that are meaningful in that respect, but nevertheless, you've got to be very careful. But anyway, so the worst is, right, when somebody is pretending to be concerned about you, but all they care about is themselves. Though that's the real, is that somebody all he cares about is himself, you know what you're dealing with. And that's okay, he's got a limited vocabulary. But somebody who cares about himself, pretends it's all about him, right? That's a Bernie Madoff. These people are very, very dangerous. Okay, so getting back. Okay, so he says, right, you do the opposite. You do the action before you get the ideas. It's very bad. Now he's going to say later that there are actions that you do to bring humility, and that's not a contradiction. There are things you can do that will help you with achieving humility. Like being a mother is one of them, right? I have a friend, what's his name? I forget his name now. He's a stand-up comedian. He says like this. He says a mother is the only person who can check a diaper while eating dinner. Right, before you, then it's like, oh, no. Right, so,
right, Israela has her hand up.
Yes, Israela, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't know if we're moving on from this, or if, because I'm not convinced yet why it's called Ein Ba'olam Bara Mehem. Why is it so terrible? I mean, it would seem like if you realize that you can only rely on Hashem, you won't be susceptible to these charlatans and demagogues and narcissists. I'm just wondering, why is it so bad? I mean, it's pretty bad. Somebody who rapes a child, that's pretty bad. I mean, why, like you said, why is this the worst thing? Like, why is this so bad? I'm not clear on that answer.
Yeah, I don't think I'm giving you a very good, a perfectly good answer. I'm going to have to think about that some more. Let's get back next week and see if I can come up with something more convincing. It was a good question.
Yeah, I thought.
I mean, you
I
asked the question.
I know. It came to me while we're reading it.
Oh,
the
you
whole
expect
purpose
us
was-
to actually have an answer. Oh, I see.
Well, no,
What?
Yeah.
Sorry, you going to say something, Zita?
I thought we sort of were getting there. I thought when we said that the deceit and the pretense of pretending to care about you when they really don't,
Yeah.
is a huge issue, because that totally destroys relationships, right? Like this is not a real relationship. It's a fake one. And that like crumbles society. That's not a simple thing. I mean,
No,
think
it's
about what
not- it's
Madoff
not-
did.
It's totally not a simple thing, but is it worse than a child molester? That's Israel's point.
I mean, just trying to think of something really, really bad that we would all find, I mean, a murderer in cold blood. I mean, these things are pretty bad.
These things are pretty bad, right?
Yeah, because we're thinking in
mean-
terms of physical actions.
And it's not just physical. When somebody gets raped and somebody gets killed, I mean, it's not just physical, it's a lot more than physical. But I mean, okay, think about it, brainstorm. If which is thought when you were talking made me think, maybe it's because it's basically saying there's no God in the world. Because if you're going to trust someone, like you said, it destroys the fabric of society. Like, we know there are bad people in the world, and then everybody can recognize them, and then they can be dealt with. But maybe this is bad because it destroys the fabric of society. It says that there is no God, really, because we're supposed to bring God into the world. And
Yeah, but
when we're pretending,
right, but pagans in themselves are pretty bad. Why is somebody who pretends to who pretends to be humble and who's really arrogant so bad? I mean, it's bad. I'm not advocating for it, but I don't have a handle on what makes it the most heinous of crimes.
They say that rape tends to occur by a close family member. And how does that happen? It's usually, I care about you. Doing this for you, yada, yada, yada. I mean, I've heard a lot of this kind of talk.
Billy, she took your line. I'm sorry,
And-
Billy's
What?
yada, yada. Never mind. I'm sorry.
The point I'm trying to make is you have to pretend to be quote unquote humble in order for that to occur, in order for something that heinous to occur.
Yes, but not always.
Because I
True.
thought rape was about power.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, but
Molestation is
initially, how
not.
do they get you under their power? They
It
deceive
depends.
you.
It depends. No, it
Yeah,
depends.
I-
If it's instrumental aggression, and it's rape, it's purely power, and there's no deceit. It's just a violent act. If it's molestation, that's different.
Yeah.
Because
So
according
really,
to
we don't know. You're just asking an academic question.
No,
Now we're all not going to be able to sleep tonight, Rabbi. Thank you.
you're welcome. Anytime. At least it's not the worst crime.
Not sleeping is not the worst crime.
At
we
least you're not
just-
pretending to be humble.
Yeah.
Can we flip this for 1 second and let me ask an opposite question? Can someone be too humble?
No.
What
No.
was your question?
Can
Somebody
someone
what?
be too humble?
Yeah, it's Shul
No.
Melech. That was his downfall. But that wasn't a real humility. That's what.
For David Amelech?
What do you mean for that? No,
Sure.
no.
Oh,
He
Oh,
he
Shaul.
negated himself. And that's what the Navi says to him. Like, you don't think very highly of yourself, but you're the king. You have to, this is not your place. But that's not real humility. Real humility is the job. It's
I
not
thought
about me. Rav Nachman,
maybe I'm misunderstanding.
yeah. Rav Nachman used to say that humility is, the truth is more important than me. That's what humility is. Yeah, sorry, Srela, what are you going to say?
Sorry, I thought it was Shaul Melech. It wasn't that it was humility. I thought that it was that he cared too much about what the people said, and that's why he blamed the people. So really, he didn't have such high self-esteem. Excuse me for saying. It's a difference between. Right. It's not humility.
No, right. It's not humility, but it's that phony humility, right? It's not a correct, a well-placed sense of self or duty. Mm-hmm. Or duty is a better way of saying it.
Rabbi Bars?
Yes, go ahead, yes.
There was something you once taught us with Mishlei, how Shlomo HaMelech is trying to advise not to, be deceived by people who say, let's go together and ensnare them, and we will split the spoils together. Right. Like we will do this. It's really like a deception to include you when really they don't care about you.
Right. Exactly. Right. So
wasn't that one of the worst things that he said? That he said it's one of the bigger, it's like the big evil.
He describes there, it's in chapter 1, the different traps that evil people get. One of them being will split the spoils. And he's giving you the various techniques of the Yetzer Hara or evil people. And one of them is we'll split the spoils. Another one is it's an easy kill. It's like falling off a log. It's a piece of cake. Right? These are all the get rich quick schemes that don't they're silly. They entrap you. That's what Las Vegas is all about. You'll get rich quick. Yeah. But why is it? But the question is, why is it the worst of all evils? That's going to be our homework.
Okay.
Maybe if we keep reading, we'll find the answer.
Yeah, could be. But what I wanted to say is that so there's a distinction between an action that gets you to be humble. So, for instance, the rabbis say, flay and be a butcher in the market. In the good old days, you didn't have refrigeration, and you take the cow or the goat or whatever it happened to be, or the chicken, and it's very hot and sticky and smelly and dirty, and it's not a very nice job, But better that than stand on ceremony. And I'm too good for this kind of stuff. Right? There are certain things you can do that help take you down a few notches. So here he says that acting humble without being humble is extremely destructive. And that's what we're discussing. Why is it so destructive? Nevertheless, we can all agree that it is extremely destructive. So there's a difference between doing things that will make you humble on doing things that humble people do. That's a very important distinction. You're not going to get, you can't do the kind of things that humble people do if you're not really humble. You'll never pull it off. You'll never be able to, and what's really humble is doing what's really important in life. Is taking care of business, taking care of the important business in life. That's why, no one can pretend. This is why orphanages didn't work or don't work, because you can't. Social workers, you can't pretend to be a mother, you can't pretend to be a father. Right? Despite what the Western world would have us believe. Right? You can't pretend to be the president of the United States. Right? If you really don't care about the people, right, then you're not going to make it. You're going to make some terrible decisions. Why are invariably every president of the United States a disaster? Because they don't really care. You can't pretend to care. It just doesn't work. You know, so in the Western world, they think you read the right books, you say the right things, you have the right values. When you get to be president, you'll make all the right decisions. You won't. You just won't. If you don't really care, you won't do the things that really make a difference, that really are necessary. Now, you can be a functionary. You know, you can fly a plane and you can drive a car and you can do things like that. But you know, electing a president of the United States, electing a king is a disaster. You know, as Winston Churchill said, you know, democracy is the worst possible system that except for all the others, right? So you're right. Making someone a king is also a bad idea. But at least with a king, we know he doesn't care.
So why did Hashem say, you want a king? Go have a king.
So the point is that a king should be somebody who really does care, right? He tells them not to have a king, right? When they ask Shmuel Hanavi to have a king, he tells them, you're making a big mistake. You're not going to like it very much, because ultimately they came to not care.
The kings.
The kings. There were some exceptions, but you can't train people to care. It's just not on the cards. So when you've got a president who doesn't really care, see, it's easy when he's passing laws that you think are correct, but behind the scenes, it's really a disaster. It's just phony. I mean, Truman said this, even though he was a Democrat, but he said after him that all the presidents cared about was image. It wasn't. It was because of television. After him, it all changed.
Is that like Après-moi le déluge?
I don't know what that is. Sorry.
That was Louis the 16th. Said, after me, the flood.
I don't know about that.
You mean he was saying that the world would end after he dies?
Right.
Oh, wow. One of the things I say to people, and they always look at me funny, is I don't trust any politicians, even the ones that I like, because they really only have one job. Their job is to get reelected, period. End of story. And it's kind of like what Rabbi Bars is saying. Their job is not to care about people. Their job is not to pass just laws. Their job is to get reelected, and that's it. So everything else that we may think that they, are supposed to be doing or supposed to be caring about, or maybe even everything they think they're supposed to be doing and supposed to be caring about, at rock bottom, the only thing that really matters to them is to get reelected. Everything else is just, it's window dressing. It's, something to make them look good or whatever. So even when I like a politician, I never trust the politician. It's a whole different issue. Trusting them and liking them are two different things. I don't like, I may like them, but I don't trust any of them because I know they don't care. It's like the rabbi saying, they don't care about anything except getting reelected. Every single one of them,
Well, I don't know if I go that far.
I would, just did.
I spent a little time on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
We got a federal grant at one point. And, there's a lot of people, especially behind the scenes, not the figureheads, who are there for the right reasons. A lot of people.
But that's different, the behind the scenes people.
Yeah, right. But they make the politicians care. And you do get a few people that their heart's in the right place, but it's very difficult. Yeah. I mean,
maybe that's the reason why it's so evil, is that when you pretend to care when you really don't, people eventually find out that you don't care, and it creates this feeling of like, I don't care either, right? And if everybody starts thinking in those terms, then you have a world where nobody cares when anybody gets hurt or bad things happen and they don't help. Like, it really is a destruction of the world.
oh, that's a good.
Well,
I think that, yeah, you know what? I think to answer the question, I think what's going on in Israel at the moment is very instructive. You know, with the judicial reform, that you might hold either side, right? But there's a lot of people at the top who are destroying the country because of their,
They're not caring.
They're not caring. So that, you know, so when you come up with these statements like this is going to destroy the country, or the economy is going to go to pot, or all kinds of other things that are so ridiculous, right? You're stirring the pot in you know, even if you're right that this is not a good idea, you're riling people up for your cause that's revolutionary, that's highly destructive. And those are the things that really destroy the world.
The rhetoric in Israel, and you know I've been reading a lot of the Israeli papers and all, is just truly amazing.
Right, it's amazing.
To me.
Right. These are people say these kind of things are just, this is what this is talking about. They're using their pretense of caring and riling people up because people believe it. You get the same thing in America. It's also terrible. It's very hard in America to be moderate, to say the reality.
But I've never heard an American politician say, "Bite me, you retard," on the floor of Congress, which was quoted as having been said on the floor of the Knesset.
Yeah, but
coalition.
They say things here that are just you know, are not real. You give the abortion debate. When you put it in terms of slogans like pro-choice, you're clouding an issue in a slogan that doesn't truly represent what really is going on. Now, you might be a pro-abortionist, right? But to color it like you have to be pro-free choice means that the opposite is anti-free choice, right? So like that just colors the whole argument. So you destroy the country that way. These kind of slogans are the people who come up with these slogans just don't care about the quality of life in the country.
You do know that's not new.
What's that?
Go ahead, Larry.
I was just going to say that's not new, this slogan.
No, I know, but when you do things like that, you know, you can have a debate, we should have abortion, not abortion. You can have a debate, it's the woman's right, it's not the woman's right. But when you come up with the slogan pro-choice, it's the same thing that the founding fathers of America, they said, taxation, representation without taxation, right? Yes,
no, it was the opposite. Taxation without
representation. Thank you. Well, I was on the other side. So I was in England at the time. So
yeah, well, y'all were confused.
So when Thomas Jefferson came over to, that wasn't Thomas Jefferson. Was it Thomas Jefferson? I think it was Thomas Jefferson. Came over to England.
I think it was John Adams.
No, it wasn't John Adams.
Benjamin Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin, thank you. Benjamin Franklin came to England. They told him, under no uncertain terms, we don't want representation. In other words, if the English Parliament, which they weren't going to give him anyway, if the English Parliament said, okay, you can have representation, right? That would have been the death of the American Civil Revolution, because he would have been one vote in a parliament where I don't know how many is, 200 people. It wouldn't mean anything. It would be meaningless, right? So you don't want, but you cloud it in these terms that make it so you can't have a meaningful discussion. You can't really sort out the truth anymore. You don't care. It's very
that's key, though, Rabbi Bars. That's the key. When you say something like pro-choice, what you're creating is a mindset of not caring about the second life in that equation. That's what pro-choice is saying.
You're not caring about people who disagree with you. You're giving them a pejorative. You are anti-choice.
But it's worse than that. It's not just the other person on the other side of the aisle. It's also,
yeah, okay. So but now you're arguing about the point. I don't want to get into whether abortion is right or wrong. Obviously, I think it's wrong. But that's not the point. That when you color it that way, you cut off debate.
I get it.
Then you've just now labeled half of the population as anti-free will. And it's like, come on, that's not meaningful. You
don't care about them. You just care about your stance.
You just care about yourself, right? That's not a healthy way to. It's a very destructive way, and that's how the country's got into this mess. Because each slogan pushes the country. We're the one side, we're the other side, and then no one can talk to each other. It's very destructive. You can't.
Well, and the other thing is, you're not looking at the actual. I mean, you create this issue. It's a big deal. It's an issue, with a capital I. But you're not just looking at the specific situation of whoever the person is,
Exactly.
Because like I had a friend when I, these many years ago, when I was in college, and I liked her. She was a very smart woman. She did some things that I thought were really cool, like not letting her boyfriend drive her Lamborghini. But anyway, which made him crazy, but leaving that aside. But she managed to have not one, but 2 abortions. And I thought she was a complete idiot. I mean, I happen to believe that the government should keep their hands off our bodies. That's just, that's my bottom line. However, even with that, I thought she was an idiot. Don't be stupid. I mean, you're a smart woman, you know how to not get pregnant, and we've got free birth control, and you're stupid enough not to have just 1 abortion, you have 2. I mean, what kind of an idiot are you? But that's a specific person in a specific case, and, she did it, and I have a right to my opinion. Nonetheless, I still think the government should keep their hands off our bodies. I don't think it's a government matter. I think it's a personal matter. And if you're that, whatever you are, even still, it's not, I don't know. It makes me crazy. It still makes me crazy to this day. And God knows it was 50 years ago or whatever the hell it was. But I don't know. Our government sometimes is just tromping all over things that are just not things they should be dealing with. They should make the trains run on time. They should, pave the damn roads. They should help people in places where it's 110 degrees every day get water. There's a lot of things, useful things the government can do, but keep your hands off of everybody's body.
To bring this back, Billy,
sorry.
It's that there are those in government who have no humility. They are not thinking about others. They're thinking about imposing their own views on others.
Yeah. There's a lot of that going on.
It's not about, they're not about actually making people's lives better. There's a lot of things that just happen because it looks good. My son-in-law, he works in a semi-government agency. So during COVID, they had to do a policy where it's 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off because they couldn't have everyone in the office. They didn't have enough office space. So they tell everyone you're on 2 weeks, and they can't, and it's in the kind of, it's got security clearance. They can't work they can't do it at home. So it's 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So they asked him to do an evaluation on productivity, right? So he came back and said the productivity went up. So I asked him, I said, does that mean that you're going to keep this policy going, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off? He said, no, obviously not. So why obviously not? There's no way the government is going to pay us the same amount of money if we're not working for a week straight. Is it? You see, it's not like no one cares. If you care, you'd figure out how to make this work, right? But you don't care. You just want to, but you'll pretend that you can, and you won't find anyone who says, right, I don't care. He had a this, I don't know if this sort of really fits in. He had someone in his team, and she was a complete disaster. So I said to her, how did she become part of your team? She was highly recommended from another team. So why did they recommend it? Because they just tried to get rid of her. This is part of this idea, like, I care about you, right? People don't care about you. The people who don't care about you, they pretend that they do, and that's very, very destructive. I think that's getting close to the answer of why this is such a terrible, terrible trait. That when people behave, it's a very common thing. I hate, one of the reasons I left Los Angeles it's not the reason, but it's one of the reasons, was I remember going into a supermarket and they had a sign up, if the cashier doesn't say, have a nice day, all your groceries are free. And it used to drive me batty, because they have these, LA used to have, they were one of the first to have it, all night supermarkets. So you could go in 3 o'clock in the morning and get a bottle of milk, right? And the cashier would say, have a nice day. And this cashier couldn't care less. Right? She's using toothpicks to keep her eyes open, right? And she says, have a nice day. But that's what this is all about. We're in a society where people think so many people care. The Democrats care, and the environmentalists care, and we just got to care about the planet and all these silly things, and it's destroying the world because people don't.
Oh, wait a second, Rabbi Barnes.
Yes.
Okay, wait, I almost lost it. Wait a second. Okay, we're trying to find the answer, right? So, but if people pretend that they care, and they pretend that they're humble, and they really aren't, then it means that you trust them that they're going to do something. And the reason why this is so terrible is because it's delaying the geula from coming, because the only way that we're going to have the geula is if we have geulas pratis, then we're going to have geulas klalis. And if everybody is not relying on themselves and on the godliness within them, which Hashem made us, his messengers, we are little less than gods, the poet said. So if we are relinquishing our ratzon to somebody else, then we're going to be not doing our part to bring the geula, and the symphony is not happening, and it's delayed. So we have to stop it. That's why Hashem said, fine, you want a king, you fools? Okay. Like, we're not supposed to have a king. That's why the Baal HaTanya got so annoyed. That's why the Baal HaTanya wrote the Sefer Tanya. Everybody's hugging me in Chinik. Oh, what should I wear today? Who should I marry? Who do you want to marry? Don't ask me. Okay, here's a book. Okay, this is your soul. This is your Sahara. This is your Tov. Now go and learn Geyavek. Like, stop asking me. That's not what a Rebbe is for. Right. So if we're going to relinquish our free will and we're going to abnegate self-responsibility, then the geula is being delayed. I don't know.
Very good. Rav Yaakov Weinberg used to say, if you have to ask a shaila, you've failed.
If you have to ask who?
If you have to ask a shaila, you've failed. Like, you should figure it out yourself. On that
I don't know. I'm just struggling with this because we want the Gula to come and everybody says that it's here and we're talking about this and you're stuck on this and now it's really starting to bother you because you don't know the answer. You're trying to get the answer. I'm trying to get we're all trying to get the answer. And maybe that's really what it is, that this fakeness is preventing things from really happening, no?
I like it.
I agree with that.
Zita's got a hand up. Yeah, go ahead, Zita.
So you actually taught us that when a parent gets up in the middle of the night to take care of a child, that in this way they teach them that there's a God, right?
Yeah.
So if we do get to this point of not caring and pretending that we care, isn't that the fastest way to eliminate God?
I think you're saying the same thing as Israel, right? That's this idea. Exactly. I think you're right.
I never thought of it this way. I never thought the worst evil is not caring, but it's true. If you don't care, then you don't stop the murderer. Pretending. Right, because that erodes it, right? So if people get to the point of not caring because someone else pretended to care when really they didn't. Right. So then they don't care and they don't try to stop the rapist or the murderer or the whatever it is because they don't care.
Oh, I'll tell you something very interesting. We learned this. What's l'shem shemayim when you do something for the right reasons? So he brings down the Gemara that says that if you do things for the wrong reasons, there's two ways of doing things for the wrong reasons. One of them is you do it for the wrong reason to make to make people think that you're a tzaddik. So he says, or to get praise or something like that. So he says, it's better off you died in childbirth. It's a Gemara. You're better off you died in childbirth. Why is it so bad? Because what you're doing is you're making people think this is how you do the mitzvah. Right?
What about mitoch shelo lishma bo lishma?
So he says that if you do it for the wrong reasons, there's a different type of doing it for the wrong reasons, which is you want to get to olam haba. That's the wrong reason. If you do it for the wrong reason, you'll eventually come to do it for the right reason, because when you do the right thing for the right reason, right, you'll learn how to enjoy it, which is the right reason, right? So when you care for people, the whole goal of existence that we're here for, it says that the Midrash says that when God divided between the waters, the lower waters and the upper waters, the lower waters complained. And God said, don't worry. And this happened each of the 6 days, there was a different problem. The problem with the water complaining is that it was the lower waters that complained, not the upper waters. Bless you. Bless you. Exactly. Bless you. Right? We don't feel bad because it's over Zoom. You can't catch COVID over Zoom. You can't catch a cold over the Zoom. So at least that's what they say. So you can't. So if you're pretending that you care and you don't really care, people don't know what real caring is, and that's the whole goal, is to care. The problem with the waters is no one cared except the one that was suffering, the lower waters. You needed to bring in a creation that could care about someone else. Human beings are the only thing that cares about something other than themselves.
What?
Right?
Animals don't care about their babies?
They only care about their babies. Right? I did a video on penguins on this. Right? Penguins can't tell each other apart. So the vultures come down and kill the babies. They eat the baby, they snatch the babies out when all the babies are in the same sort of huddle together, because the mothers can't tell one from the other.
Right? But what about the crying cow?
Well, right, that's a very good point, right? When you take a calf away from the cow. No, animals care about their own pride, their own children, their own, like, to a limited degree, right? But they don't care about other lions, right? Human beings are the only thing that care about something not of their own. That's the whole point of creation. That's to be godlike. So when you pretend that you care about someone else and you don't, you're destroying the world. Because people don't know what real caring is. They think caring like that is terrible. In the same way you're doing a mitzvah for the wrong reason, people go, I don't want anything to do with that mitzvah. I heard a rabbi say this once. You should go to shul so your children see you go to shul, which is the worst reason to go to shul. One of the worst reasons to go to shul, because your children will never go to shul. Because if you're going to shul because you want your kids to go to shul, right, you're going to hate going to shul. So of course they're not going to want to go to shul. What are they going to want to do? They want to go play golf because that's what you really want to do. So unless you do it in a way that makes you want to do it, the world's going to end. The world's just going to implode on itself because no one wants to be a politician, because they make going out and helping, when you see these politicians go out and kiss babies or go on food lines, right? Food kitchens, they don't want to be there. And it's clear they don't want to be there. So no one else is doing it. They're only doing it to make it look like they care.